The Galactic Confederation's premier military training facility orbited a dying red dwarf, its artificial gravity chambers humming with the energy of 1,000 worlds. Kyle, the Vrexian Rangemaster, stood at his control station with all four arms crossed, a posture that signaled deep disapproval among his kind. His chitinous exoskeleton reflected the amber warning lights that pulsed throughout the firing range. Lockdown protocols initiated, his translator barked across the facility's intercom system. All personnel cease fire immediately. The command echoed through the vast chamber where representatives from 47 species practiced their marksmanship. Plasma rifles cooled, energy weapons powered down, but at Station 7 the human continued firing. Mira didn't hear the announcement. Her ear protection, primitive foam plugs the humans insisted on using instead of proper neural dampeners, had fallen out during her last reload. The thunderous crack of her projectile weapon, an archaic chemical propellant rifle her people called a P-338, Lapua Magnum, continued to split, the air with regularity that would have impressed a chronometer Kale's primary eyes. Narrowed. Humans. Always humans. When Earth had joined the Confederation 3 cycles ago, the military advisors had laughed. A species that still used gunpowder? That propelled metal slugs through rifled barrels? That measured distances in yards instead of proper metric wavelengths? It was absurd, quaint, almost endearing in its primitiveness. Then the humans had started breaking records. Mira was the worst of them, or the best, depending on one's perspective. She had shattered every long-range accuracy record in Confederation history. She did it with iron sights, breath control, and what she called Kentucky windage. The scientists were still trying to understand how her species could calculate ballistic trajectories intuitively. Without computer assistance, someone stop that human, Kale commanded, his translator adding harmonics of frustration. That's when the cubs appeared. They weren't actually cubs in the mammalian sense. They were Krith younglings barely past their third molt, their crystalline skin still soft and cloudy with youth. They had been assigned to shadow Mira as part of the Confederation's cultural exchange program. The Krith, a species of living silicate, reproduced rarely and treasured their young above all else. Kale watched in horror as the three cubs scurried across the active firing line. Negative. Return to safe positions, he roared, but the cubs ignored him. They had learned human stubbornness from their mentor. The smallest cub, no larger than a human child, reached Mira first. It tugged at her pant leg with its crystalline appendage. She didn't notice, focused entirely on her target 3,000 meters downrange. The holographic enemy combatant flickered in her scope. The second cub picked up one of her fallen earplugs from the floor. The third cub climbed onto the shooting bench beside her, waving its arms in her peripheral vision. Finally, Mira lowered her rifle. She looked down, saw the cubs, and her weathered face, scarred from some pre-Confederation conflict, softened immediately. She removed her remaining earplug. The sound hit her like a physical force. Alarms wailed. Kale's voice boomed across the range in 3 languages simultaneously. Other instructors were shouting, some in frequencies she couldn't hear but could feel in her chest. Oh, shit, Mira said, which her translator rendered as excrement acknowledgement in Galactic. Standard. The cubs chittered, their species equivalent of laughter, and held up her earplugs like trophies. Kale descended from his station with the weight of someone about to deliver a career-ending reprimand. His species could move with surprising grace when motivated by anger. Around them, the other trainees watched with interest. Humans were always entertaining even when they were being disciplined. Markswoman Mira, Kale began, his translator set to maximum formality. You have violated 17 safety protocols. You have ignored a facility-wide lockdown order. You have endangered. He stopped. The cubs had positioned themselves between Mira and him, their soft bodies somehow conveying protective defiance. The smallest one held up the earplug again, as if offering evidence of their mission's righteousness. Kale's mandibles clicked in confusion. The Krith were the most cautious species in the Confederation. Their young were never allowed near danger, yet here they were, having crossed an active firing line to retrieve phone plugs. They insisted. Mira said quietly, kneeling to the cubs' level. When my earplug fell out, they saw me wince at the noise. They wanted to help. The largest cub chimed in crystalline tones. Kale's translator processed, Mira teaches us to protect Pack. Pack protects Mira. This is the human way. Something shifted in Kale's understanding. He had read the reports about human pack bonding, the psychological quirk that made them form attachments with anything, pets, plants, even their vehicles. He had dismissed it as species-specific nonsense. But here was proof that it worked in reverse. These cubs, these precious Krith younglings, had adopted human protective instincts. They had risked themselves for their human. Kale's anger evaporated, replaced by something uncomfortably close to respect. This was why humans were dangerous on the battlefield, not their primitive weapons or their surprising accuracy, but their ability to make others care, to make others brave. The lockdown was called, Kale said, his voice softer, because a Tharkonian delegation is arriving. They want to see the human markswoman who beats their champions. Mira stood, checking her rifle with practiced efficiency. Then I guess I should put in my earplugs and show them what Kentucky windage looks like. The cubs chittered again, pressing close to her legs. The smallest one held up the foam plugs insistently until Mira took them, cleaned them on her shirt, and fitted them properly into her ears. Kale returned to his station, making notes in his report. He would document the protocol violations, of course, but he would also note something else. The human ability to inspire loyalty wasn't a weakness to be exploited. It was a weapon more powerful than any rifle. As Mira resumed her position and the cubs settled nearby, close enough to help, far enough to be safe, Kale understood why the Confederation's enemies were right to fear Earth. Humans didn't just fight for themselves. They made you want to fight for them too.